Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to be doing a deep dive today
Oh, yeah.
into a topic I think a lot of us are interested in and struggle with.
Yeah.
And that's getting the most out of our workouts.
For sure.
We're going to be talking about a concept called kinetic energy, which is something that
Wow.
Sean, the author of Zero Fitness Folks, talks about a lot in the book.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that Sean does so well is that he breaks down these kind of complex ideas into
Yeah.
these really relatable analogies. And
Yeah.
one of the ones that really stuck with me was the way he compares building strength to constructing a building like a skyscraper.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
Right.
Okay, so break that down for me a little bit.
Yeah. So imagine like kinetic energy is like the concrete
Okay,
you use to pour that foundation for your strength building,
I see.
right? You can't have this like
Got it.
awesome skyscraper without a really strong base.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
So the more intense your workout is,
Yeah.
the more energy you're generating, the more concrete you're pouring into that foundation.
Oh, I like that. So it's not just
Right.
about burning calories. It's
Oh,
about
exactly.
building strength.
It's about building that
Yeah.
solid foundation so you can add on to it later.
That's such a great visual. Like we're literally constructing
Yes.
our strength brick by brick with every rep.
I love it.
But the question then becomes, how do we make sure we're
Right.
mixing the right amount of concrete? How do we actually measure
Yeah, how do we know?
our intensity to make sure it's enough to
Right.
build that foundation?
So there are a few different ways we can go about this.
Okay.
One common one is heart rate,
Right.
which, a lot of people use wearables to track that.
Sure. Yeah.
And while tracking heart rate is useful, Sean actually points out that
Okay.
it's more insightful to look at how your heart rate responds to
Okay.
different levels of exertion so you can figure out what your optimal training zones are.
Right. Because a marathon runner's resting heart rate
Exactly.
is going to be way different from someone
Okay.
who's just starting out.
Yeah. And that's where perceived exertion comes into play,
Okay.
which is basically just tuning into how you feel
Okay.
during a workout. Like, can you hold a conversation? Are you breathless? Are you,
I see.
dying over here?
Yeah.
And Sean talks a lot about this idea of learning
Right.
to listen to your body's signals, and it's more subjective, sure, but it can be a really
Right.
powerful tool.
Totally. And what about for the people who love data?
Yeah.
Like who really want to see those numbers? Is there anything else?
Yeah, there are more objective measures like
Okay.
measuring oxygen consumption, which is often done in a lab setting,
Yeah.
or things like power output, which is great for
Okay.
activities like cycling where you can
Right.
actually measure those watts.
So finding the right method for you
Yeah.
might take a little experimentation.
That might take a little
Okay.
trial and error.
But let's say we figure out how to
Right.
gain your intensity. What do we do with that information?
Yeah. So that's where we start to talk about this idea of a threshold.
Okay.
Right. So Sean talks about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing your limits,
Okay.
but not overdoing it. And that's what he calls your threshold.
Okay. So like if
Right.
you're lifting weights, it's that
Exactly.
that's challenging.
Yes.
But you can
Yes.
still do it.
It's like that point where you're like,
Yeah.
ooh, this is tough, but I can do it.
Yeah.
And a well-designed program helps you safely push past that,
I see.
little by little, so you're constantly kind of raising the bar.
So you can use that threshold to determine
Yeah.
like your ideal weight for lifting or
Exactly.
the right pace for your run or whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, finding that sweet spot for each.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces
Yeah.
fit together. So we've got the kinetic energy,
Right.
we've got our intensity,
Yeah.
and we've got this threshold that we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to surpass.
Absolutely.
That's
Good. I'm glad.
This is really good stuff. Okay, so
Yeah.
now we know how to kind of get the most
Right.
out of our workouts in terms of
Right.
building that strength, and we've got all the
Yeah.
pieces. But what about the dangers of
Ooh, yeah, that's a good point.
going overboard
We should talk about that.
with intensity? Because I know
Yeah.
you can overdo it, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I think Sean actually talks about this in the book too.
Yeah, he does. He talks about this idea of overtraining.
Yeah.
And how, just like you're saying, like if you overload a foundation
Right.
before it's set, you're going to have problems.
Yeah, you're going to have cracks and
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
going to crumble.
it's not going to be good.
Yeah. So pushing too hard, too fast can actually lead to
Right.
some serious setbacks. He actually shares the story about an athlete
Oh, wow. Okay.
who was training for a marathon and was super dedicated, like
Oh.
pushing their limits every single day.
Oh.
And like,
I mean, I used to be that person. I used to think
yeah.
like more was always better when it came to working out.
Yeah, a lot of us do.
And I would push myself to the limit every time.
Yeah.
And I actually ended up getting injured.
Yeah, I think that's a really common
Yeah.
experience for a lot of people.
And it wasn't until I read Sean's book that I realized
Hmm.
the importance of finding that balance.
Yeah.
So what happened to this athlete? Like, did they ignore some warning signs?
They did. They were pushing through things like constant muscle soreness, feeling
right.
exhausted even after rest,
Mhm.
even getting sick more often.
Wow.
Thought it was all just part of the process,
Oh, that's the thing, though. Sometimes those warning signs can be subtle.
Yeah.
How do we know
Right.
when we're pushing too hard versus just experiencing
Exactly.
normal workout fatigue?
That's where that self-awareness comes in again.
Okay.
Sean really emphasizes paying attention to
Right.
how your body responds to different levels of exertion.
Right. So, like, if you're consistently sore.
Yeah, if you're consistently sore, if you're exhausted, if you're noticing your performance is declining,
Yeah.
those are all signs that maybe you need to back off a little bit.
So it's not just about hitting those intense workouts.
Right.
It's about listening to our bodies and knowing when
It's
to
about finding that balance.
dial it back.
Exactly.
So what happened to this runner?
So unfortunately, this runner ended up with a stress fracture in their foot
Oh, no.
and was sidelined for months.
Wow. All that progress gone.
Yeah, all that progress gone.
From pushing too hard.
Just from pushing too hard.
It's a good reminder that
Yeah,
less is more sometimes.
absolutely. Especially when it comes to building sustainable strength.
I think it's easy to get caught up in that no pain, no gain mentality.
Yeah.
But Sean's book really challenges that.
He does.
He's all about,
He's all about finding that sweet spot
finding that sweet spot.
between pushing yourself and respecting your body's limits.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So it's not about
Right.
just going all out all the time.
It's not about being in pain all the time.
Right.
It's about finding that balance.
It's about building that awareness
Yeah.
and understanding that progress isn't always linear.
Yeah, some days you're going to crush it.
Yeah.
Some days you're going to need to prioritize recovery.
That makes total sense. I think that's a really good
Yeah.
point to end on for this part of our deep dive.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to take a break.
So we will be
Yeah.
right back
Sounds good.
after we hear a word from our sponsor,
Great.
Primus 3.
Awesome.
They're performance-enhancing electrolytes that help you push past your limits safely and effectively.
Yeah, and we'll be back
Just like Sean talks about in Zero Fitness FucX, we'll be right back.
right after this. Back again, and we're diving right back into it. Some days you're going to have amazing workouts and feel great.
Yeah.
Some days you're going to need to prioritize recovery.
You got to listen to your
You
body.
got to listen to your body, exactly.
Well, I think that's a good point
Yeah.
to maybe wrap up this second
Yeah, I think this is a good place to pause.
of our deep dive.
Yeah,
Um,
to be continued.
so we
Yeah,
will
yeah.
pick this back up in just a minute.
That's good.
And we are back for the final stretch of our deep dive
Round 3,
into Zero Fitness FucX.
let's do it.
We've been talking all about this concept of kinetic energy.
Yeah.
How to build that skyscraper of strength,
Right.
brick by brick,
Brick by brick.
with every workout.
Love it.
But, sometimes even the best laid construction plans
Oh, yeah.
hit a snag. So
For sure.
I think that's what we need to talk about next,
Understood.
which is that point where you're putting in the work, but you're just not seeing the results.
Yeah.
The dreaded plateau.
The plateau, oh, it's so frustrating.
It can be so demotivating.
It can be.
Does Sean talk about this in the book?
He does.
Because I am all ears
Okay.
for any advice on how to butt through these plateaus.
So, it might not be what you expect.
Okay.
But Sean actually argues that plateaus are a good sign.
Okay.
They mean that your body has adapted
I see.
to your current routine and it's ready for a new challenge.
So instead of getting discouraged,
Yeah.
we should see it as like a signal to switch things up.
Exactly. It's like leveling up.
Yeah.
In a video game, you can't just stay at the same level forever.
Right. Yeah.
Got to keep finding those new challenges.
So that might mean increasing the weight you're lifting,
Exactly.
maybe changing the type of exercise you're doing,
Yeah.
or even just like tweaking the order.
Yeah, just mixing things up a little bit.
Interesting. So it's not always about pushing harder.
Right.
It's about pushing smarter.
It's about pushing smarter, finding those new ways to
Oh.
challenge your body.
Got it.
And, it's not just about the physical gains.
Right.
Sean also talks about how this builds mental resilience.
Oh, interesting.
Like when you hit a plateau and you have to find a way to push through it,
Yeah.
that builds this mental toughness that you can take into other areas of your life.
I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
It's not about chasing some arbitrary number
Right.
on a scale or, lifting a certain amount.
It's about the journey.
It's about showing up consistently,
Exactly.
challenging yourself, and using those challenges to build a stronger version of yourself.
Stronger, more resilient version of yourself.
I love that.
Yes.
Well, this has been an awesome deep dive. I feel like
It has.
I've learned so much.
Good.
I feel like I have a whole new toolbox
Awesome.
for building strength.
I love it.
So I think we should probably wrap it up here.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to stop.
But if people want to learn more, they
Yeah.
should definitely check out Sean's book.
Absolutely. Zero Fitness FucX. It's a game changer.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It is.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into
Yeah.
Zero Fitness FucX.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.